Welcome, everyone, to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the Artist First Radio Network. All past broadcasts are podcasts. Find them at artistfirst.com. We welcome your questions and comments. Please use DJ at artistfirst.com. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here they are live in living color. It's Margaret and Michael Lyons.
Focus. Thank you, Z-Man.
You're up, kid.
Oh, here we are. This will be a very interesting hour.
That's optimistic.
Oh, all right.
Oh, yes.
Yes, why don't you do that?
Did you hear Z-Man when he introduced us?
Yes.
He was like, another show.
Stop.
God damn. Will they ever cease? We think that. We feel that way too. Scott, we're with you.
You're just awful.
Will it ever end? Someday it will.
Everything ends.
I'm Michael
here.
Lyons.
And I'm Margaret.
And we're so happy to be here.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. Focus.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So this is your topic, sort of.
Oh,
So
blame me.
Go for it. No, I mean, yes, but go for an intro, and then we'll launch.
All right. Well, I was thinking about how whatever it is that we're focusing on, how does our consciousness actually begin to shape the reality that we have around us? And usually when something happens, whether it's an event, a person, or something that just happens, and it doesn't...
Random.
Yes. And it doesn't line up with your expectations. Especially if you're a small child, let's say. Your first reaction is, hey, why is it doing that? Or why did they say that? Or, in other words, the attitude is, how dare they? Or, how dare you? Or, why is this happening? And if you continually focus on that person or the event in that manner, you eventually come to a point of resentment. You know, I don't like this. Well, what can I do not to have this or not to interact with this person? And it begins to build up a lot of resentment. And it's interesting because whatever it is that you focus on and how you focus on it you will turn into what you focus on. Maybe that's the best way to put it.
Well, I mean, so if we started at the beginning of that, because there's a lot there.
Okay.
The very first reaction you mentioned as a small child, which is a good one, because children have, let's say, certain expectations of what will be, and they come upon them somewhat honestly, because they're almost given this sort of false syllogism to start with, that that the world is an orderly and fair place, and unfortunately, as you get a little older, that becomes that happy sort of falsehood starts to crumble. But in the beginning, yes. And then the problem is given that false syllogisms, given that false sort of paradigm of what life is, the reaction is, and I think this is important, is that something happens, as you said, random anything, or something that they don't like, and the first reaction is sort of, how dare you? Or it's sort of an offended reaction.
Yeah.
In essence, the false syllogism, the false paradigm of your world is a fair and orderly place where things happen that you like and things that don't happen that you don't like, or that there aren't random things in the world that just happen.
Well, your belief that somehow you can make your reality only the things that you like.
Right. And that you wouldn't want to start children off with, here's the harsh reality, kid, life is unfair. But, in being sort of kind, if you will, we present children, and very rightly so, with a very protected, sort of curated reality. We don't expose them to the harshness that life is, because it would be cruel, because they're not prepared for it. But there's this transition period at which you have to catch, and it's different for every child and every person. But if you're a perceptive caregiver, parent or caregiver, you have to very gently guide them towards a better understanding of reality. And I think some of the work that you did with the kids in the preschool, you and the other teachers did with the kids in the preschool, is guiding them into that reality. And we won't dive off into that, but it's very important to cut this offense off very early. In essence, when the reaction arises, how dare you? I don't like that. I'm offended. And it can easily, almost naturally fall into this sort of the world owes me something.
Mm-hmm.
If it's wrong, it has to be made right for me. That I will reject and avoid anything which I don't like, and that which I find offensive has to be removed from me and has to be rejected from my reality.
Right.
And that unfortunate, if it's reinforced, that becomes an unfortunate source of resentment, of misery, right? Because you become miserable about the fact that you cannot control this, or this happens, and why does this always happen to me?
Well,
and that cycle.
You fall into fear as well, because
you can fall into fear.
The way you look at reality isn't what's happening, so I'm afraid.
But I think I want to focus. Yes, fear is there. I don't want to, although that's true, it's there. But I think the resentment is much more important, because the root of resentment is that things shouldn't be the way they are.
Right.
And that if they aren't the way I like them to be, it's because it's someone else's fault. The resentment is a person-to-person thing. You don't resent random, because it if you understand that it's random, you understand that it's not. There's no animus there. There's nothing behind it. But you resent people because you say, well, they're doing it on purpose to hurt me, or to get me, or to come, or to make me feel bad. And if you internalize that, it becomes a real source of misery, and also it gives life to an ego, to a pain body kind of energy entity, if you will, that steals your consciousness, steals your attention, and becomes your identity. And this is a very slippery slope. Go ahead.
You can resent events and wind up resenting things because of what's happened.
I think you have to assign blame or some sort of animus before you can resent something. You blame God, you blame, fate, you blame whatever, but you have to you have to personify it and then resent it.
Well,
I think it's part of a relation. Resentment is a relationship with that which is, and if you give it a persona that reality's out to get me, then you can resent it.
You're making it personal, is what you're saying.
Right, making it personal.
Right. So if you make it personal, then you can form a resentment. And that quality, that way of viewing, that viewpoint specifically, that resentment aspect it has a flavor. Oopsie.
Someone is coming. On the last show of the year, we have a guest host. Hold on, say hello. She's fine. I'll hold her until she becomes miserable, which will be about 10 seconds from now. Go on, Lead. Say hi. Say something. Are you resenting coming up here?
Yes, we have a guest.
You're so fat and furry. All right, go ahead. I'll try to keep her somewhat quiet.
Well, it's going back to understanding that this habit form, this can become a habit form for an individual, and they'll forever be looking at whether or not I like it. And if you don't like it, and you continually look at the things that you don't like, resentment rises because you're constantly exposing yourself to that energy of resentment. No, I don't like that.
Well, but I think you have to personalize it. You have to say that this, whatever it is, even though it's obviously not, the fantasy portion of it is that life or these people who aren't even thinking about you are out to get you. These
Right.
people are, that I think you had an experience many years ago of a person in your class who literally was resenting everyone around them for just laughing, for just having a good time, and everyone she saw, she thought, well, they're talking about me.
Well, yeah.
And that attitude of what do they call it, main character syndrome, where if you think that everyone around you is talking about you and thinking about you and either out to get you or wondering about what you're doing, and that whole kind of and this is a very childish thing, to feel that the whole world is somehow focused on whether you're happy or not, or they're out to get you. And you're resenting it when it doesn't work out, kind of thing.
It's all about you.
It's all about you, exactly. We had a show like that many years ago, but it's all about me.
And that self-centered viewpoint, this is where it all starts, is when you can only see through yourself, your eyes. You can't feel compassion for another or even sympathy. It's all about you. Anything that's not including you in an opinion just doesn't matter.
Kind of like a cat, for argument's sake.
Well, cats like food.
Cats, it's all about me if you're a cat.
Right. It's just what they are. But humans, you hope that they mature out of this all about me world. Because it's how you're interpreting your world and what story you wind up telling yourself as you interpret your world. So if it's all about you, then if you like it, then everything is good. If you don't like it, then how dare the world not line up with how I want my world.
Yeah, but I have to stop you right there. I don't think very many people actually grow into that at all. I think it's the far greater portion of people stay in the "it's all about me" world.
Well, this society, especially with all the Facebook and opinions, people are prodded or pushed to manufacture a face to put out there. And it becomes very superficial. No depth.
Yeah, but I mean certainly that it adds to it. But I mean the whole idea, what you said before, of resentment, of internalizing this idea that if I don't like it, then somehow how dare you? That's the core of it. That feeling of my wishes, my desires, my likes and dislikes need to be considered by the universe and everyone else in it, and that if anything's not going right, I have the right to dislike it and resent it. That's very, very common. I think Facebook is more of and other things, other social media things, are more of a symptom than the disease. They are created by a world or a person and people who are focused almost entirely on that resentment. And as you mentioned earlier, I think I was wondering when you were going to bring this up, but I'll bring it up, is that this colors all your relationships. That if you get into this mode, into this operating paradigm, that every other relationship is now all about whether or not it meets my expectations, and
Right.
if it doesn't, then I'm free to resent it and to find fault and to not like it and to basically cast my judgment upon everything else because it's not meeting my expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what really resentment means. It's not meeting my expectations.
So what you're saying then is that this all social media has done is revealed the fact that this is burbling under the surface.
Yeah, amplified it and
Yeah.
revealed it certainly, but even gives it a forum.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
You have the opportunity to watch people
Resent out loud.
mm-hmm. and feel that they have every right to say whatever they want.
Right, I'm going to stick my fingers in my ears and hold my breath until I turn blue. Okay.
All righty.
When you pass out, let me know. No, this is the tantrums. I mean, literally, people have 2.5-year-old age-wise tantrums where they stick their fingers in their ears and hold their breath until they turn blue and pass out, with the expectation that everyone will rush to their to make it right and to dry their tears and give them a hug and a lollipop and promise never to do it again because I don't want you to ever feel any discomfort. Your happiness, your elusive level of happiness, whatever you want it to be, is everyone else's concern, including the universe and all the stars within it.
Right. Well, that's...
I wonder what Hortense is thinking. You think I should twinkle now? Maybe not. She could, a billion years from now when she sees it, it might offend her.
Well, it's amazing, actually, when you think of it. It's like, okay, so you actually believe everything just revolves around you. There's nothing outside of your...
You hear it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
People say, well, this sunset is almost perfect, but if it only was this or that or this color was just if we'd just been here 2 minutes earlier or 3 minutes later and just, and it was almost perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it never perfect for me? Oh my God. It's a sunset. It doesn't care.
Right.
Just enjoy the moment of now. But they cannot. That's the other thing that comes out of this, that this resentment steals. It becomes an entity. It becomes an energy thing. It becomes an identity, not an entity, but also an identity. And it steals every iota of joy and satisfaction from every moment of your existence. Isn't that a lovely thing?
Well, if you realize that focusing on resentment and searching for it and trying to classify things because of the perfection of your universe, you turn into the embodiment of resentment. Whatever you focus on is what you become. So if you're constantly thinking about resentment, that means you're defining yourself by the energy of resentment. In other words, I walk into the situation, what is wrong with it and what can I resent?
Mm.
And then everything around you is seen through those glasses.
Well, that lens, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you're like, well, okay, I believe that's called misery.
Mm-hmm. That's for sure called misery.
Well, and the interesting part about it is not only are you miserable, but anybody that you're interacting with is also miserable.
There's that. Yes, absolutely. They're miserable because you're around, and they are that anyone else's happiness is a cause for further resentment. It should be me. Why should they be happy before I'm happy? And I would say that very closely related to this spirit, this idea of resentment all the time, is the spirit of lack. You're literally always, nothing is ever satisfying. Nothing is ever enough.
Well, you're never content.
Never content.
You're never content because you have to check these boxes for perfection. And truthfully, perfection doesn't exist in this world. It just doesn't. Which means that you've set yourself to an impossible task, which you will never be able to make right.
But correct. You're correct. But yet, that's what the this ego identity, if you will, this spirit of resentment feeds off of. The core of the spirit of resentment is imperfection, and wanting it to be perfect, and the fact that it never is the source of its power. It's the spigot by which it drains your life force. It's never quite enough.
And just thinking about that for a moment, you are always looking for something from the outside to fill that empty space. And you think that by setting these rules up, that it will be filled. But how many people have done that? They get the perfect job. They get the perfect car. They get the perfect soulmate thing. How many people actually come to fulfillment? Because it's usually empty. You're at the top of the ladder and nobody likes you. Okay. You have no relationship. Okay. You've got the fancy car. You're running around in this fancy car, but then something else grabs your attention that says this is not perfect because.
We should bring in something else as well, because you just reminded me when you said the ladder. This idea that focus on a particular goal can become your identity as well. People often misplace this idea of perfection and put it upon themselves. I want to be X, Y, or Z. You mentioned car or job or something like that, but it's what your resentment is based on what you don't have, and oftentimes you can channel that. People say, well, channel that into working towards what you should have, what you want. But even that journey can become toxic, or it can become a false identity, because you're never satisfied with where you are. You're never satisfied with what you have. You are always looking towards the future. Your goal is, let's say, I don't know, I want to make $1 million before I'm 28. Well, the problem is you get there and you realize that it's empty. And you say, well, now I want to make $2 million by the time I'm 29 or whatever. So it all becomes this never-ending focus on completion, or when you're going to get to perfection.
You're believing the story you told yourself.
Believing the story you told yourself. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned, and this was another aspect of it, is that if you look at life as a journey, you do need to move through it, and you do need to overcome certain obstacles. people can identify with that which they had to become in order to overcome an obstacle. You had to work and train and focus on what you wanted, and you get to this pinnacle, this goal. Realize that really wasn't, in essence, fulfillment, but yet you say, well, I spent all this time and I did all these things and I have all these skills. Let me identify with that at least and take that on to the next level. And instead realizing that what you did and how you got there is not necessarily relevant to the next phase of your life. In fact, the next moment of now, your identity with the journey or with the unattainability, with the lack of perfection of your current situation, you identify with that. When you get to what you thought was the goal, you're carrying that around. You're carrying around the fact that your identity is really with the resentment or the lack or the things that you did not have became your identity. It reminds you of someone who's never satisfied with what they have. It's always what I don't have. You get 1 degree, you want to have 2 degrees. You get $1 million, you want to have $2 million. You have your bucket list of all the things you want to do before you die, and you never get there. Those are all forms of misplaced focus, and that misplaced focus becomes, in essence, resentment and a lack of real connection with reality, or of actual connection with reality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's very it keeps you in the mental realm.
Oh, also.
You are not really in the moment because you're constantly comparing what you think you see with the concept of what it should be. And that just keeps it whirring in between your ears. There's no touch point down into, well, here I am, and this is the situation. And this is what's in front of me right now, which could be completely different from what I thought it would be.
Mm.
To let all that go and say, okay, well, what am I actually seeing? What am I feeling? What am I experiencing right now? Where does this need to go? How does it need to unfold? And when I say need to go, it's the perceiving the flow of the moment, not what you think it should be.
Mm.
The breath of the moment. Maybe that's a better way to put it.
Well, I really like that. I think we should transition a little bit into exactly that. This type of focus, the focus that we've been talking about, breeds resentment. It breeds, I totally would use the word pain body. It breeds entities which take away from your ability to be in the moment of now, to be conscious, to be aware. But there's a proper use of focus, and you just touched upon it. That the first step into improper focus is how dare you? It wasn't what I wanted, so someone owes me. The first step of focus into sort of a proper use of that is focusing on the moment and accepting that this is the moment, that no matter what you thought it was going to be or what you felt it should be, which are emotion and the mental, if you just use your focus to in essence really be in the moment of now, really be aware of what's happening around you and accept that is what is. So you move away from I don't like it, and it shouldn't be that way, which is judgment and resentment and moving into that whole pathway.
And suffering.
Suffering.
This is what suffering actually is.
The root of suffering. But if you use your focus, and the proper use of focus is, why not me? We've said that before. Why not me? This is the reality that I'm in right now. Be completely aware of it. Accept that this is what is, this is the moment of now. And you just said it. That's a wonderful turn of phrase, to feel the breath of the moment. Well, what does that mean? So what's the breath of the moment? Well, the breath is synonymous with life, the key, the movement of energy in and out, the that which has breath. In Genesis is a wonderful depiction of the creation of man, that God shaped the clay, the materials, the creation, and then breathed life into it, put his breath within it. Well, that's a beautiful analogy of the moment of inspiration, truly, by the word inspiration. To inspire is to breathe into.
Right.
So that the breath of the moment is you can almost think of it as literally taking a breath. People say, well, just take a breath. Yes, something happens. The moment of now occurs. And to be in it, and to be aware of it, and to focus, take a breath. You breathe in the moment. And in doing that, in this sort of physical analog, you accept, something happens, and sometimes you'll hear somebody just go, sigh. Well, that's close. If you just take the moment to realize what it is. And I don't mean what it is to you or about you or in relationship to other people. No, just what it is, like the actual moment of now. And in doing that, an immense peace and calm enters into you. You've probably felt it at one time or another in your life. If something happens, and instead of immediately saying, I don't like this, I didn't expect this, I don't want this, all the flying off into resentment and why me's, if you just take a breath and then you're there, and yes, you have to pick up the broken glass, or you have to deal with the crying child, or you have to, whatever it is, somebody hands you a horrible diagnosis or whatever it is, that moment of now, in the intake of breath, you felt the breath of the moment, and you realize that this is real, it's now, and it is, you have to accept it, and then you can be in it, and you can deal with it, and it doesn't actually identify or affect you in your core. Yes, it is perhaps something you have to deal with, but it's not you. It's not taking you away from your focus and making you focus on all the other things that run into suffering. It runs more into the eternal and into the moment of now being just a moment in the eternal, and the next one's coming. And you breathe into the moment of now, and you know what to do. What does this moment of now require of me?
Well, the breath brings you out of that mental state where you're in that tight little spin.
Yes.
It's thinking outside of that box, understanding that you're more than just this box that you've built. And that's difficult for people because it means that, oh no, it's the unknown. I'm in the unknown. I don't want to embrace that because, bad things can happen. And it's the old, well, so can good things.
Yes.
Anything can happen, but you have to be open to it. Again, it's the fear. It's understanding that fear does exist, but it's your reaction to that fear that rises. How are you handling this? Do you want it to take you over? Because many times people just give in to fear. I'm afraid is what they say, which means that you have become fear instead of I feel afraid. And what are you afraid of? This happening. Instead of embodying fear, you just realize, well, yes, you have every right to be afraid, but it shouldn't control you because you paralyze yourself in that moment. And is that what you want to do? Just be consumed by fear?
Or, as you mentioned earlier, consumed by resentment, consumed by this. Really, it's unfortunately almost comical. And if you've seen a child react, with "How dare you," it's almost comical if you have pulled yourself into the moment of now and say, well, yes, the whatever the wave didn't mean to hit you and startle you and make you cry or make you afraid or make you outraged, or the circumstance that you're in doesn't care or did not try to offend you or try to scare you or try to do anything to you. It just is what it is. The reaction can be comical, but in truth, it can also be that root of suffering. If your reaction is why me, if your reaction is I don't like this and it's somebody else's fault and somebody has to make it right, and everything that I'm feeling is what I am. I am angry. I am afraid. I am sadness. I am misery. Well, then you're not you anymore. You're not a conscious awareness. You're no longer actually in control, although the ego will tell you you are. You're screaming, ranting, and raving and demanding that the world change for you. But that's the definition of out of control.
Well, if you think about it, you give up your sovereignty at that point.
Yeah.
The ability to stand as you and not the circumstances or what you happen to be feeling in this moment or happen to be thinking. You're much, much more than that. And it takes courage to take a step outside of that, because the box that's built for managing your life, you put faith in that box believing that this will make me safe. Instead of putting faith in the fact that you yourself as an individual will be able to find a way. You will always find a way, right, whether you like it or not.
I mean, there's something right there that I think you should emphasize. I think you said it twice, and I really like it. This box that you feel you can put reality in,
comfy,
and is exactly that. It's not only just comfy. It's a false sense of security, and when something occurs which doesn't fit in the box, the resentment, the fear, the outrage, the anger, everything that rises up is taking you into misery because your box doesn't fit anymore.
Suffering and misery. Yeah.
And if instead you are approaching reality from the point of view of there is no box, or, well, that's scary right off the bat, but there is no box. There never was. That the box itself is an illusion, and it's also crippling, and it's also the source of pain and fear and suffering. You take back your sovereignty. You say, I am an inspired, eternal being within an incarnate flesh body with a soul, a spirit, and a body. And my sovereignty is, in this reality, I have the superpower of two of them. I can accept the moment of now, I can breathe it in, and I can decide what it is that I feel about it, not make it into me, and what I will do next. Conscious awareness and the realization, and this is perhaps one step removed, but very important, that you're exactly in the right place, doing exactly the right thing, at exactly the right time. You're there for a purpose and a reason, And the reason and the purpose that you're there is revealed when you take the breath of the moment.
Mm-hmm.
The breath of the moment not just a breath for you, but it's a opening, because when you open yourself and breathe in the situation, you can be inspired in many ways. You open yourself to connection with the eternal. When you put yourself in the moment of now and take that in breath, take the breath of the moment, the time in essence stops. You have that instant. It is eternal. It's an eternal instant. And you will get the inspiration. Why am I here exactly? I'm here for a reason and a purpose. I have to breathe in the moment, and that reason and purpose and the next action will oftentimes become apparent. Now, are you constrained to do it? No. You still have to decide to do it. But you will be informed by the moment of now, and then asked, in essence, will you do what needs to be done? And then you still, because you have free will, you can refuse. But you will have the opportunity. You'll be given the opportunity every time.
Yes. Look through the experience of what life is. When you have these experiences of suffering and pain, and that's where the backlog of energy is. It's the description of the pain body for Tolle. People have been communicating one to the other through their pain and their suffering. It seems to be a very, it's a common thing. You finally find someone who's willing to share in the experience. So you can, it's almost like a pressure valve. You can, okay, someone else understands. But the next step after that, because most of the time that build-up is so strong that all you do is concentrate on how to get a release from it. But to focus on the fact that through that pain and suffering, there is healing that is possible. That's the beginning part. And forgiveness. Healing and forgiveness. That as a focus for the communication is helping people process their pain and process their suffering. And you must process, because that is the thing that is constant down here, regardless of whatever you think. Process or change is the constant down here. So focusing on the next step of, okay, there is another perspective outside of this pain. And eventually embracing that healing and that forgiveness, you do get to a point where you say to yourself, it's only pain. I'm familiar with this. And your perspective at that point is higher, just like the analogy of the ladder. This experience has forced you to take a step up on the ladder, to be able to see better, to see more broadly, to understand that focus on that one rung is not where you're supposed to be stuck. You must continue moving, because that is what a human being does. We continue to move. It's better if you move upward and process through it instead of abiding in that pain or that moment. Like, no, I'm more than this moment. I am not what has happened to me. There's more to me than just this. And yeah, people may tell you, and you can tell yourself, you are justified in feeling this way. But again, we are in the realm of empty. We reached empty again because that is just an instant in time where your life is much more than that instant. Again, we'll go back to the opposite of death is not life, but birth. Birth and death, beginning and end. But what's in between those two is life. And to take the step upward means you are living and not abiding in one particular emotion or depression or anger or whatever it may be, that moment. Again, as I said, you may be justified in it.
Well, I mean, that's the focus that people get stuck on.
But you're more than that. Life, there's so much more life for you than just that particular instance.
Well, and just pain is not, life is not all pain, and that's the problem with focusing upon it.
Mm-hmm. You believe at that point that it's all, life is all pain.
When you seize upon the offense, how dare you, or why me, you give life to the entity that says this is who you are. You are this pain. Your focus then becomes why is this happening to me? Why doesn't it happen to someone else? I don't like this. This will never end. It'll always. This is all who I'm going to be. I'm going to have to be dealing with this for the rest of my life. You hear this litany from many, many, many people. When suffering has captured you, when the entity of suffering has said, this is who you are. You are this person with this incurable disease. You are this person who never gets what they want. You are this person who's always put upon. You are all the things, all the litany that you hear from people, and you hear it a lot from people, especially in the amplified chat rooms. You have given up your superpower, which is to be in the moment of now, to be aware that this is not you, to take the breath of the moment, as Margaret said, and to understand that this is only a moment and it doesn't identify you. You have completely, your focus and everything about you has been captured and crammed into a different kind of box. It's not the safe box anymore, but it's this outraged entity which says this is who you are and this is who you're always going to be. The only way out of that, though, is what Margaret was saying, is that you have to move, and you only move by knowing where you are. You realize that every moment that reality presents to you is just, let's say, a rung on a ladder or just a step on a journey, and that taking the breath as you do something difficult, you take a breather. I mean, we've seen, well, I can think of one show in particular where one of the watchwords was, you don't give up. You take a breather, but you don't give up. When you're doing something that's very, very difficult, or when a very difficult situation is suddenly thrust upon you, if you seize it and say this is me and why me and all, you're lost. You've let the situation take control. You may feel as though you're in control, but you let the situation take control. It's actually, you've identified with it. It has become you. You are now anger. You are now fear. You are now the life situation. If instead you're already tired, you're already exhausted, you're already put upon, everything is going wrong, another thing happens. And you don't say, that's who I am now, the person for which everything bad happens. No, you take that breath. You take it in, you say, there's another thing I have to do. But in this moment of now, I know it's not me, and it will change. and I can decide not only to accept that this is where I am now, but know that this is not me, that the next moment is going to be different, that I'm going to retain my conscious awareness, realize that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, doing exactly what I'm supposed to do, as me, not as the situation, not as the disease, not as the offense, not as the anger or the fear or any of the other things, but just as me. And realize that it just, the amazing thing is that once you do that, all the power of the situation to claim you, to take you, to identify you, to box you and nail you down into the situation, say this is you and you're damned forever, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
It's gone, and you can take that next step and realize that the next step is still you, and you. It's curious because you're free of the situation. It doesn't have a hold on you. It just is what is.
Right.
And when it is what is, you realize what Margaret just said. It's only pain.
Mm-hmm.
It's and it's going to end, and you're still you no matter what you've gone through. And you just, you hear that which wanted to damn you and claim you, just shrieking in frustration and anger because it can't do it anymore, and you're free.
You take the steps to wholeness at that point, the wholeness of your consciousness. It's healing, and it's also forgiveness, as I said before, because you have to forgive yourself for entering into this state. And it's okay. It's the human thing. What I'd like to remind people is the fact that that question of, like, why am I here? What's the meaning of life? The response I would give is, you came down here to experience life. You came down here to experience forgiveness as well as healing. And frankly, because on the greater realm, you don't really have healing involved or forgiveness. But when you come down here, you can experience healing and forgiveness. But in order to do that, you must go through pain and suffering. So when that quality of how you interact with your world, and you've chosen something more than the initial, well, I don't like that, and realize that there is so much out there that you haven't even explored yet of who you are. The now becomes a gift, because focusing on the now releases you from that cage.
And it's a self-made cage. So I don't want to. I think we've been a little bit. We lost some focus here, but I think that the key here is that a little bit, because I think we want to the situation you find yourself in is not you. However, the situation would love to steal your focus and have it define you. That's the box. That's the cage, what Margaret just said. The cage literally envelops you the more you focus upon it. The more you allow the situation to capture your attention, the more you allow the circumstance to offend you, which is that first reaction which starts you down this path, the more you say, I don't like this, and it shouldn't be this way, and why me, and why not them? The stronger the bars of the cage become, the more suffering you're going to go through. But that same focus, that same ability to look at what is in completeness is the key and the way out. The key is the difference between the two is not the focus. The difference is the intent. If you spend your time initially being offended and looking for something else external to you to take this away because you don't like it, you are trapped. You are no longer in control. You've lost every ability to be that which is not the situation. You're in suffering. You're in hell. The moment you use your attention and your focus to say, this is what is, I'm going to breathe in the situation in full awareness. So yeah, this moment of now has pain in it. This moment of now has a situation that I had no idea was going to happen. But I'm here, as Margaret just said, for all the things which we are incarnate for healing, for forgiveness, for experience, for awareness, for relationships.
For love.
For love. And in the moment of now, you breathe it in, and you will find exactly what it is that you need to do. And you're not forced to do it, but you will find it. And that's the focus. The focus is, I'm here. This is real.
Mm-hmm.
I have a choice,
mm-hmm.
and I can do what needs to be done. It's not necessarily the easy thing. It's not necessarily the thing that you might choose, but you're there not because you get to choose why or what or how, but you get to choose that which you get to choose what you will feel and do next.
Right. Right. And that is the awareness that is you. So we have reached the end of our hour.
And the end of the year.
So I'm Margaret.
And I'm Michael.
And thank you for listening.